Fantastic. Morning again. Thanks everyone for joining. The usual housekeeping before we kick off. As I said, we're recording the session and the chat will be saved. Both the recording and the content that you guys share in the chat will be distributed as a meeting note and made available so that everyone can see what we've been chatting about today. If possible, mics off and videos on. You can rename yourself. Please do use your name, organisation, and your preferred pronouns if you wish. There will be a chance to ask questions live to the speakers today, but as always, please do use the chat as much as possible. It's been quite a useful resource for people to share additional thoughts, make new connections, ask questions, answer questions, etc. If you put any questions in there, speakers will always also pick them up if we haven't had time to answer them in the session today. So any of the questions that you ask will get answered either live in the session or in due course. And I know a lot of you know each other, but as always, there's new members of the group. So if you could introduce yourself via the chat function, that would be great. Just a little bit about who you are and what you're interested in. This is actually our first meeting of the year because we didn't have a meeting in March. So we've got a bumper crop of new resources and updates. And just to flag again, there will be time for Q&A and discussion after each speaker. But again, please do use the chat function to contribute as well. So first up, really delighted to have Francine Ryan join us from Open Justice. And Francine is going to talk to us a little bit about the project that they're working on and the resources they're producing around using generative AI in relation to legal issues. So Francine, over to you.
I'm hoping that you can see my slides. Let me just put that into presenter mode.
Can do, yeah.
Yep, cool. Okay, perfect. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Martha. Hello, everyone. My name's Francine Ryan. I'm a senior lecturer in the law school at the Open University, and I'm director of something called the Open Justice Centre, which is a centre where we support students who provide practical legal activities that students do. But as part of the work that we do, we're also looking at kind of work around supporting the free advice sector in relation to sort of technology, and our particular interest is in around generative AI and what's happening to the sector in relation to that. And what I'm going to talk very briefly about, and hopefully in 10 minutes, and Martha will speed me up if I am if I'm going over time, is a project that I'm leading, which is being funded by UKRI Responsible AI, called AI Law and Legal Training. It's part of, there are six projects within a skills pillar that UKRI are supporting around upskilling around generative AI. The 5 other projects in the group are focused quite a lot around education, so sort of primary and secondary education. And ours is a project around civil society and how we can support people to understand better about generative AI and its implications for the public using it for legal advice, but also free advice sectors, to how we support volunteers and advisors, different organisations who are wrestling with issues around generative AI, and then more broadly, kind of smaller law firms where perhaps there isn't a training budget, and law students and future law students going into the profession. So I was going to give you a little bit of a very whistle-stop tour through this project, but basically kind of the rationale was that there isn't very much free quality training around generative AI and the law, and kind of its kind of broader societal impacts. So there is some training out there, but some of it's paid for. Some of it, the quality of it isn't great. So we've been funded by UKRI, and it's a partnership between ourselves, the Open University, Lincoln University, and Citizens Advice. And we're going to provide 20 hours of free online learning on our Open University's Open Learn platform. So you may or may not be familiar with the Open Learn platform, but it's part of the Open University social justice mission, where we provide free education on a huge range of courses that are free for anyone to access. You just have to go onto the site, and you can download anything from learning about psychology to change management to a whole host of different things. And we get about something like 10 million visitors to those courses each year. So they're huge in terms of their kind of accessibility and their reach. So that's where, excuse me, that's where they're going to be hosted. So anyone can access them. They will be free, Creative Commons license. In order to decide what we should put in this 20 hours of learning, we held 3 workshops between November, December, and January with different groups. The first workshop was with people from the free advice sector. The December workshop was from law academics and law students. And then the final workshop in January was from people from connected to the legal profession. So that was paralegals, lawyers, barristers, people generally giving legal advice. And we took those findings from the workshops, and we've used those to inform the courses. So we've tried to take what we try to create a bottom-up kind of experience. So things that people said that they needed to support with, that's what we've tried to include within the courses. There is an interim report which gives our findings from the workshop, which you can read, and I've popped the link there if anyone's interested in reading the interim report, which has got a little bit more background. And I just wanted to give you a bit of a flavour of what the workshop from free advice organisations talked about in terms of kind of their concerns. And I am sure that anybody who kind of knows, and it's hard to be failed to not to know much about generative AI and ChatGPT and everything that's happening in the sector. So some of these things I'm sure will be quite familiar to you, or maybe things that you're also concerned about. But there was really kind of we talked about what the opportunities were, so kind of the real positive potential for Gen AI tools in terms of streamlining cases, triaging clients, automating tasks, thinking about how it can enhance engagement, so help people to actually resolve things for themselves, how potentially it could support inclusivity, so things like transcription, voice to text completion, automated assistance might be useful, that potentially that there could be some savings in relation to productivity and efficiency, so it could help kind of reduce bureaucracy, which would then allow more face-to-face support, which I know is so prized within the sector, and it could support things around cost efficiencies and increasing case management, etc. But with anything as well, there are concerns that people had around generative AI. So, for example, I'm sure you're all familiar with the fact that AI hallucinates. So there are issues around accuracy and reliability. The Gen AI responses are very convincing, but that in itself is actually quite worrying, because that actually makes people rely on stuff that perhaps is not right. It can lead to misinformation. Myself and colleagues have done some research looking at Gen AI tools in terms of legal advice, and we do find that depending on the version that you use, particularly the paid for versions are better than the free versions. They do give misleading advice. There's issues around jurisdiction. And there's some fascinating research being done by academics at Southampton University, which they took 100 people. They gave them some advice that had been written by lawyers and advice written by Gen AI tools, and even and they asked members of the public, as what do you think of the advice, and they all preferred the advice given by the generative AI tools, even though some of that advice actually was wrong. And one of the things when they tried to unpack that is that what people liked, particularly members of the public, was the kind of certainty provided by the advice by generative AI. It's much more kind of convincing and directive. Lawyers, as I'm sure any lawyers on this call, generally caveat their advice. They generally say it could be this, it might be that. But actually what people really liked was the fact that the generative AI tool was much more certain. But obviously that, as we all know, the world of the law is not always certain, and there are some real risks around that. And then obviously things around ethical and legal concerns, particularly around skills. So over reliance on generative AI could weaken advisors' expertise and that loss of experience. And that's something I think as well that there is concerns around kind of lawyers and going into the profession. Stuff around digital exclusion. So obviously organisations have different levels of funding and support, and so there are concerns around, whether some organisations have access and some organisations don't. Some stuff around insurance, regulatory concerns, whether or not things are covered from liabilities covered in that respect. And then concerns around funders, that funders might think, well, okay, this is great, we've got some Gen AI tools, and that's going to create these efficiencies, and so that will then impact on funding. And so that would be, a real sort of a downside of that. And then sort of more broader sector concerned disparities in terms of adoption. So smaller organisations falling behind, implementation challenges, organisations are struggling just to kind of exist, and never mind trying to roll out Gen AI within their organisation. And that really important stuff around human oversight or human in the loop. So how do we balance AI with human oversight? And then things around sustainability and equity. So having a Gen AI tool is one thing, but being able to sustain that is really important, because I think we've seen lots of examples where tech has been introduced, but there isn't that money for then that funding after the project ends. So how do we address that? So that's some of the things that really, the kind of the flavour that came out of the workshop with our free advice organisations. And actually, there was quite a lot of similarity across the 3 workshops in some of the kind of concerns that are probably not surprising to people on the call in relation to this. So in terms of what we're doing, there are 8 courses. They are what we are going to create is pathways. So one of the big learnings from the course is that not everybody would necessarily want to do all 8 courses. And so we want to suggest pathways for different people. So that could be advisors and volunteers, that could be trustees of free advice organisation, managers of free organisations, that could be the public, that could be law students. So we will suggest some different pathways through the 8 courses. But basically, they're going to cover understanding generative AI. So that's our first course. That's a really kind of a basic, what is Gen AI? How does it differ from AI? And what's its relevance in a legal context? Then a course around skills and strategies for generative AI. So particularly focusing on prompting, how you use it, how you create the best results, how do you critically evaluate your outputs, which is so important. And then we've got an overview course, which is the kind of overview considerations. If you're in management or you're a trustee, what are the kind of things you need to be thinking about if you're thinking about bringing generative AI tools into your organization. Then we've got one that's about use cases. So we've got some legal use cases. So things like, maybe familiar with things like Harvey, but then we've got one specific to the free advice sector. So we've got support from Citizens Advice SORT around Caddy. We've got Citizens Advice Scotland. We've got one from the NSPCC. So we've got some kind of real practical examples of how it's being used within organisations currently, and some of the things that people need to be thinking about. Then we've got a course that looks at ethical and responsible use of generative AI. So, the really important things around not only just kind of the potential advantages of the tools, but some of the kind of societal concerns around like the environment, how these tools have been trained, so that people kind of have that greater awareness. Then we've got one that's navigating risks. So all the stuff that kind of we all worry about. So things to be thinking about when you're implementing tools around risk. One on legal regulation. So how is AI being regulated? Which is really important. And then the final course is around horizon scanning. So thinking about how do we keep up to date, and around AI literacy, which is really important because there are going to be requirements for AI literacy within organizations. They're all on a Creative Commons license, so you can download them, you can repurpose them for your own organizations if you want to deliver anything in a face-to-face context. They come with a digital badge, because everybody loves a badge, and a certificate of completion, so you can pop it on your CV, etc. And then they're going to be different pathways, as I say, for people. They are going to be launched hopefully at the end of June. We are just finalising them currently, and hopefully they're going to be useful. They're going to be interactive. They've got videos. They've got kind of activities. They're not just straight, here's a lot of text and content. They're done from a perspective of trying to be engaging and interactive. And we really wanted to focus particularly on the fact that obviously generative AI tools are changing very rapidly. Like every day there seems to be a new tool. I was at a conference last week and someone told me about a French tool called Mistral that you maybe not familiar with. That's not one that I'd heard of. And so they're not the courses are not designed to sort of talk in depth about which tool or what tool to use. That's for people to make those decisions. It's about trying to really kind of give the kind of questions that you should be asking. So they're kind of like the critical thinking piece. What questions, if you're thinking of doing this, what questions you need to think about? What should you be doing? How should you be thinking about doing this? So that people, I always think it's not what you know that kills you, it's what you don't know. So hopefully what we want to do is engage a kind of discussion around, if you're going to do this, let's think about what the implications are so that we can avoid any unintended consequences. And I'm hoping that was not too much of over 10 minutes, Martha, and that was a rattle through. Very happy to answer any questions, or either offline or in the session today. Thank you. And I will stop sharing. There we go.
Thanks so much, Francine. I'll take one question live if anyone has one. Otherwise, please do feel free to put any questions for Francine in the chat, and we can pick them up. Otherwise, I will move us on to our next presentation. Okay. Let's move on then. And Francine, if you could pick up the stuff that's in the chat, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. So next, we're pleased to welcome Nabil Momin, who's from Legal Ready AI, and he's going to be talking about their eBrief software today. And he's going to be joined with one of their clients, Oliver Moore, from Tower Hamlets Law Centre. So Nabil, over to you.
Thanks, Martha. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I think I've got a big job to do a great presentation after seeing Francine's demo. As Martha mentioned, I'm from eBrief Ready. So we essentially, we've got a bundling platform which is used by many users, and we really feel it's a great value add to you guys. So as Martha mentioned, I'm currently at one of our biggest clients, Tower Hamlets Law Centre, and I'm sitting next to Oliver. So Oliver will give a quick overview really about his experience using the platform. Then I will then share my screen, and I will take it from there. So I'll hand it to Oliver, who's right beside me.
Hello, nice to see you all. I work in the housing team at Tower Hamlets Law Centre as a housing caseworker, and we also have immigration, employment and welfare rights teams as well, sort of the four cornerstones of social welfare law. We take on cases for people who can't afford their own legal representation. Our immigration and our housing teams take on legal aid work. In terms of I'll just speak about the housing work. That's my sort of perspective, and we kind of run the gamut of all kinds of housing cases. So there's homelessness and public law challenges, defending against possession claims. So for example, rent arrears, antisocial behaviour, succession rights. We act against both public and private landlords and local authorities. And we also work on disrepair and discrimination claims, landlord harassment, etc. The processes that we were using before we started using eBrief in August 2024 was essentially using sort of basic basic PDF compiling software, which essentially meant that we had to get documents, if they weren't PDFs, convert them into PDFs, and then through that, we would then have to compile them all manually into the order, shuffle them around. Once we were happy with the order, we'd be drafting the index. We'd have to redraft the index and shuffle everything around if we had to add a new document. And so it was all quite painstaking. What we have found, and also just to clarify as well, those weren't integrated into the browser platform. They were their own software, so it was kind of having to go back and forth between browser platforms, email, document files, and trying to collate everything that way. And what I've found is that eBrief has got rid of that effort, because you just create the matter, you can customize it, you upload, and it automatically creates an index. And as you amend it, it amends the index and amends the pagination. The bundle creation is very, very quick and responsive, and has other features which aid in that, which I'll sort of go over my experience of in a moment. Yeah, we found it very, very simple to transition from our previous process to using eBrief, because the user platform is so intuitive. As well as it being intuitive, when I've been an idiot and haven't understood something, Legal Ready have been very responsive in requests for advice and support. So it's quite well resourced. And at the moment, we have 4 people using the software. I think I'm probably using it the most, because I use it for creating court bundles, creating disclosure bundles, creating court applications or compiling court applications. I use it for complaints to organizations. I use it for instructions to counsel. I use it for instructions to surveyors, and it saves a lot of time with all of those. And yeah, basically, even when I've had a judicial review matter which had, I think it was somewhere in the region of 600 or 700 pages, and I was able to create that in the space of about 3 days, and it worked perfectly. It was really, really easy to use. And obviously, as I say, you can reorder documents, you can rejig everything, and it just responds immediately. Some of the features that I use regularly will be sharing matters, so that the other side or counsel or colleagues have the ability to then reorder it and do what they need to do with it. And also when the bundle is of a pretty big the option of being able to share it through a sharing link rather than having to send the full document is massively helpful. And we've, in my experience, I've had no problems with the other side accepting it as valid service. Although whether or not it's completely fail-safe, I don't know, but I always check anyway. I use multi-party. So, for example, with disclosure bundles, you've got to work with the other side to agree bundles. Multi-party makes that sort of seamless. I use the custom auto numbering folders, and basically I can customize and create new folders and format them individually so that it can accord to whatever I'm working on. So it's very responsive to whatever kind of matter you're working on. It does things like date sorting. You can change it to reverse date sorting. You can get rid of date sorting entirely if you want. That's all very helpful. It helps to kind of, especially when you have something that needs to be chronological, you can just in the file name, you just add the date in a particular format, and then eBrief kind of pulls that data out and immediately dates it. And you can obviously change file names. It's just very responsive. Yeah, and also obviously it's all hyperlinked, so it's tremendously easy to just go from one section of the document to another via the index. So yes, I've found it very, very useful, very helpful, easy to use, and I would recommend it to anyone.
Great job, Oliver. Thank you. All right, that's brilliant. So now I'll share my screen. Okay, brilliant. So this is the Matters homepage. So once you sign up, you'll get your username, which is would be your email address and the password. And once you're in, you'll be able to see all the matters which either you've created or you've been given access to. So here we can see we've got a column for the matter name. We've got a comment which we can add. I'll show you how to create a new matter shortly. We can also see there's a column for documents. So this tells me how many files are in the actual matter. Okay, and this is a column for members. So the multi-party function, which Oliver just went through. So if I click on it, I can see that I'm the creator of the matter, and I've given access. I've created 2 separate parties, and here they are. So Arisha, my colleague, so let's just say she's the defendant. So I've set up a separate party for her. So once she's got access, she could then add in her own team and give them access to the platform. And we've also got one for the judge. So whether that's to the judge directly or whether it is the clerk. So each party gets access, and they then can add their own users as well into the platform. So creating a new matter is very straightforward. So you just click on the new matter button on the top right corner. Here you would give the matter a name. You can set a date, so that could be the date of the hearing. And there's also an option for comment. So as you saw on the previous page, I added the comment of the location of where the hearing is taking place. And here there's an option for multi-party. So if you want the ability to grant external parties access to the matter, then you can do so via here. We've also got a tab for auto numbering. So as Oliver mentioned, you have options to sort all the documents by date. Here you can decide about the index, whether you want it to be done via alphabets or numbers. And we've also got an option for tab. So here you choose the format of the pagination. So whether you want there to be bundle tab page, bundle page, tab page, and or merely just the page. So if you want to open a matter, you just simply click on the title, and here you can see I've got a bird's eye view of the whole matter. So in this section here, I've got the main index. So I can see I've got subheadings of my folders. So I can see there's evidence. Then here's a list of the folders. The files which are in the folders. You can see there's a column for dates. So if there's any dates in the file name, then that gets extracted. And as well, we can see the format of the pagination. So the setting for this one would have been bundle docu number / page. So this flows throughout the whole matter. So for this one, you can see I've got 3 folders with documents inside all of them. And then on the left hand side, we've got a mini index, you could say. So this tells me, this essentially breaks down all the folders and tells me how many files are in each folder. So I'm creating a new folder. It's straightforward. So all you have to do is go to setup. While we're on setup, we can see we've got 2 types of folders here. So we've got the shared folders and the private folders. So anything that goes into the shared folders, this will be seen by everyone who has access to the matter. Whereas anything that goes into the private folders, that remains within your team only. So I'm going to create a new folder. So I'll call this one access ACTJ, other round. Demo. Now click on save, and I can see that this folder has now been created. So if I head back to my matter, I can see. Okay, so one thing to add: currently the setting of this folder is only documents that are within a folder will appear in the index, but that can be changed. So you can have all your folders displaying, irrespective if they have files in them or not. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in a document into the folder that I've just created. So I've created a dummy document. Just going to find it. So I've created this one prior to joining. So test.4 ATGF demo. So I'm going to click open. And here you can, as you can see, you've got options to add in your own dates if required. And then there's a button here to inform you that this document is being uploaded to a shared folder, meaning everyone who has access to the matter will be able to see it. So once I've done that, I'm going to click on Upload Documents. And I'm going to go into the folder which I've created, so I can see it's currently being processed. One thing to add is once it's being processed, it goes through the OCR process as well. So what that means is all the text can be searched upon. So I'll show you that shortly. So yeah, this document here is being processed at the moment. And once it's done, we'll see this symbol here will disappear and it will be loaded. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to open an actual document to show you. So to do that, you just simply click on it. Once you're in here, there's various options which you can do. You have the options to create annotations. Okay, so if I wanted to annotate this text here, I simply highlight the text. Then I'll click the symbol for annotate. Okay, it's gone. Yeah, so and what happens is on the right hand side, there's a option for me to assign a tag to this annotations. So these are 4 tags which I've already set up. I can create new ones. If I wanted to assign this to this tag here, and I'll select it. And I can also add a comment. So this is super handy when you're working with a paralegal, for example, and if it's within the remit of the paralegal to review documents. So you can leave a note comment to say, please review. And then once that's been saved, the paralegal will see it and then we'll be able to review it. And then you have the options to add in, assign an event date if you want, which relate to this. So if you can see, so the date on this is 31st August 1997. So I can find this in here, then click assign. And then you also have the options to make it private. So one thing to be super clear is annotation, they stay within your team. So if you set up multi-party, annotations, the other side will not have access to your annotations. So this is just for yourself. So meaning if you were to make this private, then only you will have access to this annotation. So I'm going to head back to the main page. So as Oliver mentioned, he also uses it to create the bundle. So once everything's ready, you've got your documents, all the files are in there, you can create the final bundle itself. So if I go to extras and select bundles here, so these are 2 bundles which I've already created. I can see I've got a column which tells me the number of pages that are contained in the bundle. It tells me who created the bundle and when it was created. And as Oliver mentioned, we have a sharing link available. So if you wanted to share the link with someone, you simply click on the manage sharing link and you click on, so this is the sharing link, and then you click on the copy sharing link. So I'm going to paste this in a different browser so you can see what the other person sees. So one with a link, they'll be able to see, they'll have access to the bundle. So they essentially have 2 options. So they can either download the bundle or they can print it. So they can't do anything else with it. So I'm going to open a bundle which I've created. But before I do that, I'll show you how to create one. So you just simply go to Actions, click on Create Bundle. You choose the documents which you want to be present in the bundle. You give it a title, and there's also options to decide what the content, whether you want to put your own index in, or whether just documents, or whether you want both index and documents. You can also choose the pagination, so whether that's top left, bottom right, and so on. And then once you've done that, you click on Create, and then your bundle will be created. So finally, I'm just going to show you a bundle that's been created already. So as Oliver mentioned, these are bookmarked. So if I wanted to go to,
I thought you in the car on the way back.
if I want to go to a particular document, I just simply click on there and it will take to the respective page. So yeah, here you can see the index is present in itself, and I've got the pagination here at the bottom, and we've also got a pivot table, so you can go to different sections of the bundle. So if I wanted to be taken to section G, document 1, then if I click on enter, it would take me to the document. So at the moment, yeah, one thing I mentioned, so the document which I uploaded was a blank page, so hence why this is coming up as blank. Yeah, so that's it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. But one thing to point out is we're offering a free 30-day trial, so you'll have access to the platform and you can test it out yourselves. And as Oliver mentioned, if you need any support, need any training, we'll be happy to help with that as well. And final note is about AI. So we are introducing some really cool AI features. So if anyone wants any more information, we'll be happy to have a call, and I can walk you through that as well. All right, Martha, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks so much, Nabil. I know this is something that a huge number of our members are really interested in. We get questions about it all the time in terms of what's out there and what's available. So it's great to have presentation in such depth. I could probably take one question live before we move on. Otherwise, hopefully, Nabil, you'll be able to answer any of the questions that are popped in the chat. There seems to be a lot of interest there. So, yeah, unless anyone has any questions. Excellent. All right, I'll move us on. So next in our series of adventures, it feels like there's never a quiet day in our sector, does there? But Alex Charles from the Law Centre's Network really kindly shared some information with us around Microsoft licensing and their plans for their charity licenses that they offer. And it'll be interesting to get the views of others on the call as to whether this is something that you anticipate affecting you, and potentially have a bit of a discussion about what our options are here. But Alex, would you mind explaining a bit more about the situation?
Yeah, thanks, Martha. And sorry, this isn't something fancy or innovative. It's more of a grumble, I suppose, really, about Microsoft just dumping something on us the other week. And I suppose, yeah, like the purpose of bringing this to you all is really just to find out the extent to which it might be affecting you as well as charities, and if it is affecting you, is there something perhaps sector-wide that we could maybe think about doing together? It may not, but yeah, basically, like what we discovered the other day is that you probably might be using versions of Microsoft licenses within your organization. And for quite some time, the grants that Microsoft have given have enabled you to have a certain number of free, what they call E1 licenses, or I think they're also called business basic licenses. And so they're quite sort of simplified versions of the Microsoft licenses. It gives you access to online apps within the Microsoft suite, but it doesn't give you the like the desktop apps, and it's not kind of like the full product that you get with the paid for licenses. Microsoft also offer another version of the paid for license. So I think they give away around 10 of what they call the business premium license for free. And at the Law Centre's network, we use a number of the free E1 licenses within our tenant. They tend to be used for kind of not the main staff that are there working every day, but for volunteers, trustees. Quite often they're used for pro bono lawyers in outreach clinics to sort of help keep the costs down, other than the paid licenses that we allocate to staff. But what we found out the other day was that Microsoft are actually withdrawing those grants. So in the majority of cases, if you're an organisation that's still or only sort of using the E1 licenses or the business basic licenses, you would have 300 of those available. So that's, you know, that's still quite a considerable number. But if you're using business premium licenses, then albeit there's a reduction or a not-for-profit pricing that they're putting in place, I think it's a 75% discount on those licenses. It is a charge that they're now introducing, which we just found it quite ironic, given that Bill Gates said he was giving all his money to charity away for free, and then all of a sudden we found out that they're taking our licenses away. So I guess within our network, we've done some initial costings, and the impact on us on an annual basis is going to be around about £8,000 to £10,000 a year. And we're going to be meeting with our member law centres next week or the week after, I think, to really think about how we can try and mitigate those costs as much as possible. We will still get the 300 donated licenses within our tenant, which we will split, you know, in a portion as fairly as we can, but there's around about 1,000 of those free licenses that are currently being used. Some of those we think we can rationalise and get the cost down, obviously, because they're free. Then there's probably a little bit of tidying up to do around that. But even with that, we're still anticipating that that's going to obviously come with increased costs for our members. And I think it's all come at a time with obviously the national insurance rises, competition of funding, everything else that's going on. It's a real, I guess we're just quite shocked that it was sort of dumped on us with no real warning from Microsoft at all. And in fact, the agreement that we had with the tech and social impact team that we were talking with them last year was that those licenses were going to remain free for the foreseeable future. So yeah, it's a bit of a blow, and I guess what we just, you know, if we're going to make a fuss about it, I guess it would be great if we could all make a fuss about it. And I can see there's a comment coming from somebody there saying that that is affecting you. And the purpose of bringing it here was not just for me to moan about it and go, oh, this is terrible. It was really just to find out, like, is it affecting you? And are there ways that we can maybe come together, even if it doesn't go anywhere? I mean, I don't realistically, I don't know that Microsoft will shift their position on it, but it almost feels that we ought to make some noise about it. You know, there's so much kind of talk around these big technology players and the access to justice space, and yet here they are sort of taking away a vital means of additional licensing which we're using. So yeah, that's the end of the rant, I guess, Martha, but I'll hand it back to anybody in the room if it's something that is affecting. And I guess, I mean, Martha, we didn't talk about coordination, but if there are people, it might not be that the people here today are the ones that would necessarily know. So maybe we could invite you to raise this back to your team if you're not the responsible person for the IT, and just get a sense of whether or not that is impacting on your organisation. And if it is, Martha, would people be able to contact you?
100%. Yeah, I'm really happy to set up some kind of feedback form so that people can kind of flag whether or not they think they're going to be impacted and what that impact might be. I mean, Alexia, it's a really kind of shocking and disappointing turn to be faced with, especially when, you know, there was that reassurance that it wasn't going to happen. I can see some stuff going on in the chat. Carrie, Simon, thank you for contributing there. So a couple of suggestions there about how to connect with Microsoft. Katrina has mentioned as well that the AI committee at the collaborative plan have been discussing it, so that's good. So we know there's some action there. Maybe if we could look to coordinate that as much as possible so we can throw our weight behind any kind of cases that are being made. And I think as well from our end, I can definitely flag this with the Social Justice Funders Group as well, just flagging alongside the various cost increases that the sector is facing that this is likely to be another one. But I'll put a little form together and maybe we can start collating some bits and do something at least to, you know, raise or highlight the impact that this is going to have. If if not reverse the changes, then at least, make other funders and sector supporters aware of the additional challenges that we might be facing. Is there anyone else who'd like to come in on that? Anything that you can share in the chat about coordinated responses to this would be really, really useful. I'll take all the kind of examples shared in the chat and put them into our little kind of feedback form as well. So we're collecting all this impact evidence that we can share moving forward. Alex, thank you so much for sharing this with the rest of the group. I think it is something that fundamentally is going to affect all our organizations and all the organizations that we support. So the very least we can do is highlight it and flag the impact. I'm going to move us on to our next speaker now, and really great to be joined today by Kate Fazio, who is doing a lot of work in Australia and has been involved with a lot of kind of justice tech work down there. Kate is looking at some new research that she's been conducting, and I'll leave it to Kate to explain more. Kate, come on in.
Thank you, Martha. I'm just going to share my screen. One moment. Is that working? Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for having me. It's fantastic to be here. I am actually in the UK right now in an airport hotel at Gatwick Airport, but I will be in London Central soon. Martha, I really appreciate the invitation to speak here. I'm in London because I am extending a research project that has been happening in Australia for a bit over a year now, and we're very interested in carrying out the same research we've done in Australia in the UK. So the topic is impact investing for access to justice. I've been engaged by the Victorian Legal Services Board to carry out this research. Just a little bit of context on the Victorian Legal Services Board. They are the regulator of the legal profession in Victoria, Australia, but they also have an interesting role, which is there are not many peers globally that play the role that the Victorian Legal Services Board does as both a regulator and a steward for a range of trust funds that hold the funds related to legal transactions in Victoria. And they also play a role as a funder, a major funder of access to justice initiatives across Australia. The funds that they hold and manage at any point in time are around $3 billion. So these are funds that are coming in from lawyers' trust accounts or for particular legal transactions, and they are the steward of those funds, as well as a fidelity fund. So $3 billion at any point in time is a lot of money. In the past, they just held these funds in cash because they do need to have a high degree of liquidity because those funds are coming in and moving out. But they have established that at any point in time, it's appropriate and possible to have around 1/3 of those funds invested. And the purpose of that investment is to make a profit. That profit funds the Victorian Legal Services Board's own operations, and it is also the funding that supports their contributions to justice agencies in Australia. So that fund has been managed like any other corpus with a portfolio manager overseeing its investments. So that's $1 billion. And the VLSB has recently been asking the question, we've got $1 billion sitting there in a portfolio at any point in time. It's making money for us to distribute. But what could we be doing with those funds while they are invested? Is there an opportunity for us to apply some of those funds to justice initiatives, to invest in them rather than just distribute the corpus funds to them, the profits made on the corpus? This question is something that a lot of organisations that hold a corpus have been asking. So in the philanthropic sector in Australia and globally, it is common for a philanthropic fund to have a corpus, and it's the profits on that corpus that get distributed through granting programs. these organisations are also asking the question, let's not just have impact with the funds that we're giving away, but let's have impact with the funds that we are investing as well. So the research I've been carrying out is to help the Victorian Legal Services Board ask the question and answer, if we invested some of our funds in the justice sector, would this have an impact on access to justice? So just really quickly, some definitions. Impact investing is a slightly contested space, but there is a pretty accepted definition now, which is an impact investment has to have an investment. So you're not giving away funds, you are investing them, and it has to have elements of intentionality. So the intention is to generate a financial return like any other investment, as well as an impact. And that impact needs to be tangible, measurable, and have a framework put around it, which goes to the point of intentionality. A lot of people ask in the context of this work, what do we mean by access to justice? I think this phrase has a certain meaning in Australia, and I think the meaning is pretty similar to the way that the phrase is used in the UK, which is being able to access the justice system in a way to properly be able to understand the law, apply the law, and access the formal justice institutions and dispute resolution mechanisms available. And we all know that there are many problems in access to justice at each of those points. So the research that I've carried out so far, we did a big environmental scan last year, which was global in scope, desktop research and a range of interviews. And then we've entered into phase 2 of the research, which is much more hands-on and has been a range of workshops with peer investors, potential investees, the initiatives that might be suited to receiving some impact investing, and lots of engagement with intermediaries who work in the impact investing space to support all the actors in the space. So that is the people that are wanting to make impact investments and the initiatives or ventures that might be seeking to access them. There's a lot of market building work happening at the moment because this is quite a novel space. Impact investing is emergent in Australia. It is actually slightly more developed in the UK. There is a larger market, but I'll touch on this shortly. There is very little activity happening in impact investing and the justice space. So the challenge the Victorian Legal Services Board is interested in solving is the justice gap. I'm sure you're all very familiar with it. In Australia, that presents as 8 million people each year having a legal issue about which they receive no assistance, legal or non-legal. We've got really great data in Australia that shows the impact of having an unresolved legal problem leading to health, financial, family issues. Those consequences are obviously devastating for the people impacted. They also have flow-on effects for the services that then need to pick up the pieces for these people, and also government and public spending that's required for those services. So there is a market failure in the justice sector. There are so many people who are ineligible for free advice and also can't afford to pay for the advice that they need to appropriately resolve their legal problem. There's a very small market for affordable legal services in both Australia and the UK. There's a small but emergent market for justice-focused legal technology, which has been spoken about today. And there's also a failure of the dispute forums, the formal dispute forums available in which legal problems try to be solved. Courts, tribunals, they are complex, expensive, and slow. So the research is really focused on asking the question, are there ventures out there that if they received extra capital would be able to do more to bridge the justice gap? So would an injection of impact investing capital make a material impact on the justice gap? That's the question we're trying to answer. So what's happening around the world? There is a little bit of impact investing happening in the justice space. The USA is the most developed. They have a few funds there. I've got some reports linked here. And these funds are focused particularly on justice technology. In the Netherlands, there was a fund, the Justice Innovation Fund, set up by Hill, that is still in its emergent stages. And in the UK, we haven't been able to find any examples of impact investing in access to justice initiatives outside of recidivism. So there is impact investing happening in the UK in relation to recidivism, particularly through social impact bonds. And there is some impact investing happening in litigation funders. So one of the large ones operating in the UK is the Aristata Fund. We have looked into and found the Law Tech UK research on the justice tech ecosystem and the potential role that impact investing might have to play there to be extremely informative. And I'm really looking forward to meeting with some of the people involved in that work while I'm here in London. So we're at this point in the research, and I can't put this in the slides, but I am allowed to tell you that the Victorian Legal Services Board has decided to pursue this, and they have committed $100 million to a new impact investing fund. So that's 10% of the 1 billion that they have invested. They've decided to create an impact investing sleeve. It has quite a broad focus because it will be hard to deploy $100 million specifically into justice ventures currently, but the hope is to build that out. And of the 100 million, they have 10 million set aside for catalytic investing, where there is a tolerance for lower returns and higher impact. So when you set up an impact investing fund, some of the key questions are defining what level of financial return is acceptable to the fund, and often it will be not quite a market rate return. So a return is required, but there'll be a level of concessionality. And what types of horizons is the fund looking at as well? When does it need to be able to realize and crystallize those financial and impact returns? So work is now underway to find ventures to invest in with this fund, and to look at particularly what market building work might need to happen to get ventures to a point where they might be impact investment ready. So we have 4 emerging hypotheses about where impact investing could play a role here. So investing in technology is a key, but there's a whole range of different types of technologies that have different impacts in the broader justice ecosystem. And we're building out some hypotheses and theories of change about different types of technology that could shift the dial in access to justice. The next 2 hypotheses relate to affordable legal services. So investing in profit generating but affordable legal services. There's a very small market of these, but they are out there, and they're often technology enabled to be able to deliver those services at a lower price. And then the 4th hypothesis is about investing in impact focused litigation funders. So that is where this work is up to. I'm really looking forward to speaking to a number of you over the next week while I'm in London, and better understanding the landscape and the ecosystem in the UK. So I'll stop there. Thanks, Martha, for having me, and happy to take any questions either via the chat, or Martha can pass my email on if anyone would like to connect.
Thanks so much, Kate. It's so interesting to hear about how other countries are looking at this problem and looking to address it as well. Yeah, it's something that we can aspire to, hopefully, in the UK. I'm just going to take down the screen. There we go. Thanks so much again. And finally, I'd like to welcome a new presenter to the group. Really delighted to be joined today by Oliver Lee, who's showcasing and demonstrating a new tool that he's been working on developing, which is AskEllie. So, Oliver, over to you.
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me okay. Let me just put that. Am I coming through all right to you all?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Sorry, I've got to apologise, Martha, because I got your email yesterday and I got your first email and it just went totally through and I missed it. And I saw you one yesterday and I was like, I've got to stick this. I've got to make sure I'm there. So I do apologise, Martha, that I came to you really late and was back on the scene. And I've come on this morning, everybody, and I'm like, I've had no plans. I've put nothing together. I run a series of different businesses across the UK. I've got ADHD. I've probably got autism. I'm a bit scatty, but I've got a lot of things going on. I have done for many, many years. I run some very successful computer companies, but that's not what this is about today. So I hope everybody forgives me, because ultimately I'm going to tell you the website. I'm going to let you go and look at it. There's been some fantastic presenters on it, and I've been listening to people and listening to what they're saying while I've been scurrying about trying to put things together to have a little bit of a brief discussion with you all to tell you what I'm doing. And hopefully, and I apologise if it's all a little bit all over the place, and I hope at some point in the future I can put something together for you all properly so you can see it. Anyway, enough of that. Let me settle down and just give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm going to talk to you about today. So my name's Oliver, and I am a parent of 2 children with autism. And we've got quite a well-known story in the north of England and probably throughout the UK, because we have fought local authorities and councils and all kinds of things for many, many years for access to justice for our boys. One who's been out of school for a long, long time, on and off, and another one that is in school but struggles. So we are kind of parents that are, we're in the trenches, and we are the first-hand people that are experiencing what's happening out here. So why that's important is because, anything that you make, any product, what it will be, it has to have a story. And with our story and what we've created, has resonated with a lot of people. And before I go on to what the actual website is about and what it actually is, we've seen over the course of the last less than a year since we launched AskEllie.co.uk, we see 1,000 people come to the website a day. We get lots and lots of interaction on social media, modern social media, in terms of Facebooks, TikToks, Instagrams, where everybody is at this moment in time. And, we've had a lot of good feedback. We've been put forward for the National Diversity Entrepreneur Award. We've got the government are involved with their next big review. They want to look at all the messages that we're getting from parents. So we're kind of, at a grassroots level. This is not a big operation. I'm not a big tech firm. I've not got millions of pounds in about as much as I'd like to. And I'd like to win the national lottery in the UK this week, because no one's won it yet. That would really help. But we're a very small mum and pop style business. AskEllie was created basically out of a need. It was a necessity. It wasn't something that I was like, I'm going to got this idea and I want to make this website. No, we were struggling very much. We weren't even, I wouldn't even say we were surviving. We were drowning. We just didn't know what to do. And when you get, when you face the fact that you've got children or with special needs, and, then you are up against, especially in this country, in the UK, you are up against, EHC delays, Section 19 gaps, threats of prosecution with schools. I mean, it is, and it breaks a lot of parents. I mean, it broke us. So we created basically AskEllie. So AskEllie is an ethical, designed tool for parents that allows them to get the advice they need when they need it. So I've heard a lot of people talking today about generative AI, where it's going, the ethical side of it, also in terms of obviously the accuracy, what it is. And Ellie's trained on obviously all the latest information. I build it myself, I program it. And so it taps into all the current things. Now, it's not perfect. We never say it was perfect. But what it does is it acts as the first line of defense when a parent is struggling. And when people come on Facebook and they've got a problem on groups, because thousands of parents are on groups, they'll come and post about something. And the model that we create is actually interacting with them with real comments and then leading them through to the website as well, and then picking up. The idea is that they come up, let's say you are struggling with a school, your child's been suspended, you don't know what to do, you've got this letter that says they're suspended, you don't know your rights, because most parents don't. They can go onto Ellie, they can put in the letter, that it will read the letter, it will give them information back, and it will relay back to them in a way that they understand and will help them compose letters to interact and give them the legal advice they need as and when they need it, hands-on. AI is moving very fast. It's moving on a daily basis. And it's interesting, you know, I listened to one of the speakers earlier on saying, obviously, you know, the delusional, not the delusional side of it, but the fantasy side of it, or the tripping side of it, or whatever you want to call it, it is, you do get that, but it just depends on how you train that AI agent to be. But the fact is, the future is moving so fast. There is always going to be issues, and those issues are trying to be addressed on a day-to-day basis, and they'll continue to be. But the fact is, if parents come on directly, they put in their information, they get the results they need. The thing we find what works with Ellie compared to the likes of ChatGPT and Claude is it makes it familiar. Parents want to know familiarity. Most people do. And trying to create a product whereby that parents and people can interact with it in a way that feels human. And I think that's one thing that's been missing. And that's one thing that AskEllie brings. Ellie came about because my son's psychologist was called Ellie, and it just seemed like it was going to fit. We wanted to use Ella's Kitchen originally, but we couldn't get Ask Ella. And anyway, so that's a different story. But the concept is basically a one-stop place where you can go get advice as and when you need it to do with anything to do with your child's specific needs within education or what they're actually going through at the time. It's a complete maze. There's such a things going on at the moment in terms of problems that you will face. What this does, you see, this is a very early stage product. I implore everybody to go and have a look at the site. It's askellie.co.uk. Have a look at About Me. Don't look at the TikTok, because that's a different thing of me trying to pull parents onto that. But, you know, go and have a look at it. But the idea is engaging with people on a human level of what they understand, and then being able to draw them to a platform that feels human, that they can interact with. The long-term goal of this, and I think a lot of solicitors and lawyers will pick up on this, because I know from solicitors that I've spoken to that obviously they worry because of where AI is going and what kind of impact that's going to have on their industry, but not just their industry, many industries across the board, because it's a changing world. We're in 1995 or where the internet is now, but in terms of AI. What AskEllie can do, and the way I see it, is that there's to a point, AI can help, but it's never going to replace a hands-on solicitor or legal expert. The idea is that Ellie can be a kind of Google, in a sense, for those kind of professionals, so that when it comes to time when these parents interact with the website, it can then hand them over to real legal professionals. And while AskEllie at this moment in time is designed for children and for parents, so parents of children that are struggling with everyday things, the idea is that to grow the website so it isn't just the first line of defense in terms of obviously a parent when they're struggling with the advice and help they need in terms of, you know, dealing with local authorities and school. But what about people that are struggling with their own mental health? People, you know, with suicidal thoughts, people that don't want to talk to a human being, someone that wants to talk to, you know, wouldn't feel bad, would feel that they could talk to an AI in a way they couldn't talk to a human being, but then that AI can then link into specialist services to allow them to get the help as and when they need it. So it's a very, I think the idea and the concept of Ellie brought about by a very traumatic situation that we've been through kind of creates a foundation for where things could go. AI, I see it, is not going to replace real human interaction between professionals and parents and people trying. What it can do is it can act as that first line of defense. In the same way, you know, we would go onto Google and we would search for, you know, if we've got a problem, we go on Google and we'll type something in and it'll come up on Reddit and we'll read what other people are talking about and then we'll think about it and we'll do it. And then we might say, oh, well, that's good. They've recommended a child psychologist or an educational psychologist or a speech and language therapist. Let me look in the area for a speech and language therapist. AskEllie can do that. But like when someone said earlier, they made a very interesting point when they said that they asked a certain amount of people, you know, to look at this advice from a solicitor and look at this advice from the artificial intelligence. And the majority of them went to the artificial intelligence. This is what we're saying. People are buying into and very much connecting with what they already understand. So when you search on Google for something and it gives you, you don't necessarily think straight away, I'm going to go with that particular person. But when an AI does it, you do. And so the way you could make algorithms to look at people's reputations within the product of AskEllie.co.uk, I call it a product, but it's not, it's a website. It kind of gives an idea of where things can go. So the first thing is you have an issue, you go onto it, you type in, you're struggling with whatever it is, be it the school, be it, you know, you're trying to find a psychologist or whatever. You take all the advice, and when the time comes, based upon a particular algorithm, it will connect you with people in your area, with whether it be professionals, people within the local authority, but it bridges the gap. And that's one of the conversations that I'm currently having with certain people within government about how things could move forward, how that technology could be integrated into .gov UK so that it streamlines better. I know they're using AI a lot more now in the things, but anyone that's dealing with, I can only speak from experience of being a parent, but any parent that's struggling to get the advice that they want, trying to go onto any of these official places, it's a nightmare. You can't get anybody on the phone. And by that point, sometimes it's too late with a lot of these children. You know, you get cams and they're only coming out, you know, when that child is, you know, on the verge of committing suicide. That's how desperate things are in this country right now. So there's a broader conversation to be had around everything. Anyway, I'm ranting, I'm going on. There was a lot of things I'd written down that I wanted to say, and I won't bore you to death with them, but please go and have a look at AskEllie.co.uk. Check it out. It's a non-profit. This is something that I've put out there to help people, and I continue to do so. But the idea is, in the long run, we will work it into a way that it can connect with solicitors and point people in the directions they need to go. And then it may be something that's monetized. It may be the way that we can then integrate it so it can help people fill out documents for educational healthcare plans, whether people can go onto it within .gov and it helps them fill out for a disability badge. Things that using it in an ethical way is what the foundation is. But at this moment in time, it's a mum and pop's business. It started in less than a year ago. We're getting a lot of people coming every day to see it, and it's growing organically. And that's really all I've got to say. So if anyone's got any questions, I will try my best to answer them as much as I can. And I do apologise if my ADHD has taken over, because I do go on quite a bit about things, but I hope I've kind of got across a little bit of what it's about. And if I haven't explained myself properly, I do apologise, but please check out the site, because I even use AI to help me program code, also write within the product and describe it, because sometimes I can type things and go, oh, this is the way this is going to be, this is the way that's going to be, and I look at it and I think, I can't believe I've written all this, and then I'll put it into my AI agent I built, and I'll write it, it'll do it all for me, and I go, oh, that was just what I needed it to be, and I'll put it in. So once again, guys, thanks everybody. Anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll hand back over to Martha. But sorry, Martha, I'm sorry this has been thrown together last minute, but I wanted to be here.
No worries at all, Oliver. Thank you so much for making the time. And just to say, AskEllie was flagged to us by another community member who had used it and thought it was fantastic, and thought the rest of the community should see it as well. So I think it's a really interesting tool, as you say, really new, really exciting. And Oliver, don't worry, this won't be your last chance to come back and talk to the group. So really happy to have you back and share whatever kind of updates and questions that you want with the group as well. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, on to the final part of our session then, which is just a little bit of a summary about kind of next steps for the Justice and Innovation Group. And I wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who completed the survey that we sent round. We don't do this on a regular basis or anything like that, but usually it's good just to have a sense check about what's going well and what people might want to see in the future from a resource like the Justice and Innovation Group. So thank you so much to those of you who participated for sharing your thoughts. I'll share around a summary of the survey responses that we got, but just a really brief overview. I think people have said that they really valued the learning and showcasing and sharing environment that we provide, just as a good touch point for people to know what's going on and what's available out there, and also a chance to kind of come together with their community members to share. In terms of what the barriers are for getting involved in this kind of work, I think surprising no one, funding, time available, and other resourcing restrictions. And in terms of kind of what more dedicated resources would be useful to do or achieve, a really clear, overwhelming ask about the desire to implement some of the learning that we're sharing here, turning ideas into practice, piloting and testing new tools or ways of working and stuff like that. Which is really great to hear. You know, one of our key takeaways from this group has always been that this community is so practically minded and really has a strong desire to try new ways of delivering tools and services to help more people. And that's been really echoed here. Another couple of bits of information that we asked on were particularly about relationships with law firms and other pro bono partners, and the role that that kind of additional support might be able to play in helping organizations to implement the innovations. And again, the results here were around technical development, using AI tools and automation, and again, supporting that piloting and testing and embedding of the tech solutions that we're sharing here. At our last Justice and Innovation Group meeting, which was back in December, we had Katrina from Phil Fisher joining us to talk a little bit about the AI subcommittee of the collaborative plan for pro bono group. And Katrina, I wondered if there was anything that you wanted to come in on now to just share with the group about the discussions that you've been having and what you're looking at taking up and taking forward.
Sure, thanks, Martha. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm the Senior Pro Bono Associate at Phil Fisher, and many of you are familiar. We've been having conversations over the past 6 to 8 months in particular around this issue of access to legal tech and generative AI. Phil Fisher is a predominantly European law firm, and we are a tech and data specialist firm as well. So we have a particular interest in this, but I've also got colleagues from other firms, 2 of whom are on the call, I think today, Amy and Susan, who sit with me on a subcommittee for the collaborative plan. Most of you will know what that is, but very briefly, the collaborative plan is a collective of law firms, commercial law firms who provide pro bono support. Many of you are on the call in a number of different ways. It became apparent to us that whilst we, within our own law firms, are obviously investing a lot of money, people development, culture change pieces around access to this technology, and using it in order to try and make our law firms much more efficient, the same is not being offered to the access to justice communities. And so the committee is really trying to leverage the connections we have and build a bridge between our legal vendors, the work that we're doing within our own law firms, and the pro bono clients that we're working with. And all of us have been doing that independently of each other. The idea is by bringing the law firms together in this committee that we can start doing some work together. So just very briefly, the terms of reference for our committee is to collaborate with the access to justice community to improve access to AI and emerging technology, because that's the other thing. A lot of conversations have been had around generative AI, but there's a lot of other legal tech that we've already been utilising within our own firms for fee earning purposes. And so we've been doing quite a lot of scoping out, speaking to different organisations about specifically what they want, and have started some different pieces of work. But obviously, as many people have said already, this is a very fast moving area. And so we are constantly wanting to check in, see where we might be able to add value. And one such occurrence on a very minor point from our perspective is this issue with the Microsoft grant. So I've spoken to Alex about that, and we are speaking to some of our commercial contacts. So if you want to find out more information, then please reach out to me or through Martha. Martha and I have been having a lot of conversations about this as well, but very keen to see this grow.
Thanks so much. Does anyone have any kind of questions on that specific kind of opportunity or piece of work that they'd like to ask now? Okay, wonderful. Anything that does occur or springs to mind, please do send through and we'll incorporate it in our ongoing conversations. As Katrina said, we're working together quite a lot on this, which is fantastic. Thanks for that. And the final thing on this What Next for Justice and Innovation Group question I wanted to flag is many of you will have seen from the emails that we sent and from the survey as well. We're looking at where the future resourcing of the Justice and Innovation Group should sit. Just a little bit of context on this. So the Justice and Innovation Group was actually started by the Network for Justice, which was then a separate independent project of the Access to Justice Foundation. So the two weren't interlinked. The funding that kept the Network for Justice as an independent project and entity ended, I think, about 3, maybe even 4 years ago. And since then, some of the work of the network has been absorbed into the Access to Justice Foundation. And the Access to Justice Foundation is the funder which supports the delivery of free legal advice to charities and organisations across the UK. Sorry, my cat's really inappropriately showing his bum to everyone. Apologies for that. So some of the work of the Network for Justice has been absorbed into the Access to Justice Foundation, but as a funder, really the foundation's focus has to be on generating additional income and resources for the free legal advice sector. So what that means is that we've taken the decision that unless we're able to secure additional resourcing, and that's grant funding resourcing. So unless we're able to lay our hands on some money that we can use to give in grants to support the frontline free legal advice sector to implement some of the learning and initiatives that we're sharing through the Justice and Innovation Group, we won't be able to continue supporting the Justice and Innovation Group because it's not the most responsible use of our resourcing when we're not able to back it up with funding. So just to clarify, that doesn't mean unless we secure resourcing to actually facilitate the delivery of the group, that's not a huge resourcing ask, and it's something that the organization's been really happy to do. We just feel like we're reaching a point whereby we're showcasing these amazing solutions on a quarterly basis. We're engaging with a community that really wants to do and deliver differently. But the biggest constraints that people are up against on the front line are the resourcing, the funding, and the time constraints. And unless we can do something about that, we're not necessarily helping the solutions be delivered. So we've taken that decision, which means that we'll be stepping away from facilitating the Justice and Innovation Group by the end of this year, unless we can secure a pot for grant funding for supporting this work in the sector. As an alternative, we are also exploring, if we don't get that grant funding together, what other ways we could support the continuation of the Justice and Innovation Group. So whether that means passing it over to another organisation that is better placed to continue kind of convening these sessions and sharing this information, and what resourcing requirements that might need, and how we can support that as well. So we're really dedicated to keeping this community continuing if we can. It's something that I've been involved with since the start of the initiative, and it's very near and dear to my heart. So we're really keen to see it continue in some format if we can. It's just that our involvement as a funder will have to be on a funding basis. So we want to be able to give grants to people to enable them to do some of this change work. I hope I've explained that really clearly, but potentially not. So if anyone has any questions, I'm really happy to have a chat with you all. If anyone knows of any organisation that might be hiding a couple of million up their skirt and would be interested in providing grant funding to organisations to implement some of the solutions we showcase here, please do let me know. We'd be really delighted to talk with them. And just so you're aware, we are doing a really concerted effort over the next couple of months to try and drum up some of the funding that we think will be necessary in order to fund that. In addition to that, if you have any ideas about the kind of resourcing that you might need, the kind of funding that might be required to implement some of the solutions that we showcase here, or what you think your resourcing requirements might be, please do share these with me. It's always useful to have case studies to take to other funders, potential funders and interested parties, so we can demonstrate what we might be able to change and deliver as a result of more concerted funding into this area of work. So yeah, any examples like that you might have would be really useful. But yeah, just wanted to share that with you guys and open that up for kind of further conversation and comment as well. Potentially not today because we're nearly at time, but it's conversations that we'll be having over the next 6 months of the year. And that's, I think, everything that we have on the agenda for today. So just a last word to say, such a huge thanks to all of our amazing contributors today. I'm always blown away by the amount of work that's going on and everyone's dedication to sharing that and engaging and involving this community as well. Thank you to you all for taking the time to share your learnings and experiences with the rest of the community, for using the chat function so well. As I said, I'll be sure to pick out the questions that were asked there and how we might answer them further. We will be holding another meeting in September, and I'll send through details of that in due course. As ever, if there's any particular projects you'd like insight on, or there's an issue that you'd like to pick up to explore again in further detail, please do let me know and we can organise that. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week and subsequent weekend, and I'll be in touch with you all. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Martha.